People are coming.
You're good.
Okay, great. Okay, everybody. Hello. Thanks for joining on a Saturday. It looks like you have quite a busy schedule for the day. And so thanks for jumping into my session. I'm going to get right into it because we only have an hour. If you don't mind, I would love it if you would just put, I see your names, but I'm curious, like, who we got here. Like, are you elementary school, middle school? Just it's always kind of nice to know who's out there with me today. My name is Kim Weber, and I am here. We have been working with the Nevada Department of Education for a couple years. I'm with a company that where our name is Link, the Learning Innovation Catalyst. And we're really excited this year because we are working with the state as a provider of personalized professional development we actually have an adult learning platform called Link Spring that is going to be available statewide to do professional learning asynchronously. We know teachers are very, very busy, so we wanted to get that out to teachers in Nevada. So more to come on that. Prior to my work at Link as a blended learning coach and project manager, I was a teacher for 20 years. So I've only been out of the classroom about 4 years now. And I say only because I did not live through the pandemic with you all. So I think the landscape of teaching has changed rapidly since then. So I come to you very humbly and really want to invite you to share whatever is coming up for you in the session. I love it when people come off mute and share a little bit about what they're getting from the session. And I just always get tired of hearing my own voice as well. All right, let me jump in and share my screen. Okay. There we go. Everybody can see that okay? Building student mindset for agency and engagement. Okay, thank you. Thanks for the thumbs up. I only see a few people now. I definitely, like I said before, as I go through this, there is a huge amount of collective wisdom sitting out there on the call with me today. So please feel free to share and come off mute anytime and just interrupt me if you would like. So the topic today is building student mindset for agency and engagement. And I instantly went over here and wanted to share this screen. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the Nevada Portrait of a Learner and the driving questions, but when I started developing this session, I was like, wow, there's a lot of connection that I'm seeing. And I know this is an initiative that's bubbling around out in the state and coming together. So throughout this workshop, you're going to see a direct connection and alignment to these 4 key driving questions that are coming up in this big vision for the Nevada Portrait of a Learner, which is, how will I grow in my learning? How do I build and sustain relationships in community? And how will I contribute to make an impact? And how will I thrive? So as we move forward, we're all in this space of transforming education in this rapidly changing world. Helping students really answer these questions every day in our classrooms and really start to see them as critical components in their learning experiences will serve to make school meaningful for students. And that's a big part of what we're going to talk about today. There's a quick agenda there. I just wanted to give you an idea of what this hour will feel like. We're going to get through some intro, and objectives, and then we're going to jump right into, I know you all will have thoughts about this urgency that is out there now around student agency and engagement, what this means for students and educators. And then being the teacher, I was like, okay, whether you're a school leader or a classroom teacher, I always felt like when I was in professional learning, like, what's the thing I can go take and do right away and try? So I did bring an activity that's really going to allow you some choice and some planning time and some time to ask questions about, well, how do we really start to create activities that allow students to really have more agency, authentic agency, and ultimately become more engaged. All right. So one thing we like to do at Link is start with a connection activity before we dive into content. And it's to get us in the mindset for this next hour. So when I was thinking about, what we were going to be talking about today, I was like, well, gosh, Kim, when was the last time you were really, really engaged in something? And there's this quote that comes to mind for me. His name is Wayne Dyer. I don't know if any of you are familiar with him. But he says, you're on the right path when your thoughts know no bounds. And I know you all know that feeling sometimes, especially as teachers. You just get really into planning something and you realize like it's lighting you up. It's more than just being focused on something. I think a lot of times when we're really engaged, we feel things like joy, inspiration, and purpose. And I was like, well, that's what I want. That's what I want for my students. I would love to say every day, all day. I know that's not realistic, but if that's in the back of my mind when I'm planning, that's really key, I think, to shifting, our classrooms and our schools. So I'm going to ask you to share, and you can just drop this in the chat or feel free to come off mute. When was the last time, to this definition, like when did you really feel engaged in something that you were doing? Can be work related, school related, fun related. Does anything jump out that you'd like to share?
When the internet goes down in school and we can just teach.
Ooh, ooh,
Old school.
old school. I know, right? Tech is definitely a huge part, and shutting that off sometimes is a powerful moment. Thanks for sharing that. I'm looking in the chat here. The last concert. Yep. Shopping and making couscous from scratch. Yes, cooking can do that, right? Because it's sort of, well, you can be multitasking when you're cooking. That's a good way. I'm glad you wrote that. That's like like engaged means you aren't multitasking, right? You're in it. Our grade 10 PLCs are actually pretty engaging. Oh, that's great to hear. It's fun because it's PLCs to me mean there's a relationship piece going on, right? There's shared learning with colleagues, and that helps with engagement when you're working with others. Rose, congrats starting on the master's. Yeah. One of the things that reminds me of when I'm fully engaged is I love to run. And when I run on a track, not so engaged, I'm kind of drifting off and thinking about other things. But when I run on a trail, it's such a different experience. I'm like fully focused on, the running, but I have to also be watching the ground so I don't fall. And it really made me think about like, gosh, I'm always so busy doing other things, but when I'm trail running, I got to be 100% focused on that. And I love it. I love it. So great stuff in the chat. Thank you for sharing and, just grounding us here in this thought of like, well, if we're going to talk about student engagement, what does that even look like, feel like for ourselves? So thank you for that. All right. So I'm gonna just share, talk a little bit with you, and then I'm gonna share a resource with you here in a few. But let's begin with our why. And I don't have to say this to all of you, but we are educators. We know the reality of our classrooms better than anyone. We know that traditional classrooms tend to foster a level of passivity that ultimately inhibits students from developing the innovation, necessary to thrive beyond K-12. And yet it's important to acknowledge that it can be really challenging for us educators out there to transform and change the way we teach because of the competing demands that are placed on us as educators. So we know this, and we also know there's a lot of other factors at play. We know school needs to set students up for their long-term success after graduation. And we know, especially this year, the job market is rapidly changing. Certain careers are being phased out, replaced by AI, while new careers are popping up that we couldn't have even imagined a year ago. That's one thing for me as an educator. I feel like, gosh, it's hard to know what we're preparing them for. In the same sense that, when I went to school, the job market was a little bit different, and it was definitely more around, you went to school, you got your job, and you oftentimes stayed there for your entire career. Today, we know kids are going to be changing jobs way more often than in the past. So what are the skills that they need to have to be adaptable and flexible? So all those things, all of you out there know. So what does this mean for our students? Readiness to meet the challenges students will face upon graduation requires that they are prepared for content mastery. We know we've got the standards, we've got to get them, mastering the skills, and skills such as critical thinking, curiosity, collaboration, creativity, and the ability to communicate with emotional intelligence. Some would even argue that these so-called soft skills that we hear, that you see on the screen, are possibly more critical than content mastery in this day and age. And then you all know, I think there's some sessions out there today around this age of AI that we're entering, and what is evolving around us. So preparing students for that as well. All right. So I wanted to share this report with you all because it really illustrates what the future of work will require. And it's buttoned up in a way that worked for me. It was a great research from the McKinsey Institute. I'll drop it here in the chat. And basically you can see those 4 buckets, the categories. They're talking about these foundational skills that are the workforce when they go out. What are they looking for? And on those, I know it's probably hard to see on this slide here. I'll share the report. But basically, in those 4 things of cognitive, self-leadership, digital, and interpersonal, you see things like mental flexibility and the ability to learn. Planning ways of working, so helping and developing plans and how to prioritize tasks is a skill that's in there quite a bit. And then, of course, all of us know the interpersonal and self-leadership skills. You're going to see so much of what we're already seeing out there about student health and emotional wellness, and a lot of metacognitive awareness that we're talking more and more in schools about. But what this study did is it got me thinking, like, how much time are we intentionally giving students to develop these skills? They're sometimes baked in, but thinking about how do we explicitly call these skills out when we're giving kids opportunities to develop these skills, I think is really important. And what else you'll see, let me go ahead and drop the actual link in the chat, in this study is, okay. Again, that connection to what's evolving in the state of Nevada around that portrait of a learner, and what is it that these students are becoming and evolving into. And so you're going to see things in this study around empowering, impacting, connecting, and thriving. All of that is in the study, and all of that is also coming through in the portrait of a learner. So I think it's coming. I think we're starting to prioritize this type of awareness and time to develop these skills, whereas a few years ago it was hard to get time into our schedules to dedicate to this kind of work. So I'm going to pause there. And did everybody grab that link to that McKinsey report in there? I want to give you about 5 minutes to just take a look at it. You don't have to scroll down too far into it to get to those blue boxes. And just take a minute to read some of that. Like I said, I thought it was a pretty good digestible study. And if you're reading through it and some things occur to you that really pop out, drop it in the chat, just some ideas or observations that you're getting. I'll give us about 5 minutes. Feel free to come off mute too if something really jumps out at you. Some great stuff popping up in the chat too. Give you about one more minute. Great stuff. Okay. Well, I'm glad you found some nuggets in that report. And one other thing, you know, I think a lot about too when I do these presentations is, you know, teachers are leaders. And so I'm not, you know, I thank you. I didn't even actually get to look too far who's all in the room, but like we can share. And I know from experience, like, you know, I want to give you all things that you can pass along to colleagues as well. And I'm really seeing in the chat, you know, a lot about, you know, it's still the struggle. It's still the, like, how do we get everything in when we've got kids being pulled out for, you know, there's so many disruptions is what I read in one of the comments. Anything else anybody wanted to jump off mute and say? Gosh, yeah, that stuff about kids being afraid to get things wrong.
We talk about the growth mindset as we talk about a lot of things, you know, and it almost sounds like the growth mindset coming into education right now is a new initiative instead of a cognitive processing, you know, and that takes time. Growth mindset takes time because not all of our students are going to be at the same space at the same time with all the varying degrees of learning styles and language acquisition styles and then the disjointedness of our day.
Mhm.
I think as human beings, we have a growth mindset. I think the system of education pushes back against it.
Oh, gosh, thanks for saying that, Dr. Lindemann, right? Seen the right person. Yeah, thank you so much. And yes, there's I know we're all aware and in this system that it does. There's a great Ken Robinson. I don't know if you're familiar with him. I'll try and find it before we leave. And it talks exactly about what you're saying about, you know, our schools actually, you know, kids enter kindergarten with these like open and curious minds. And a lot of times they leave school. And I see it in some of the comments that people wrote about, like fearful of getting things wrong and they need so much reassurance. And so creating that growth mindset, not creating, but fostering, right? And really helping students see that it is okay. And we say that there's so much out there too, and in the language we use in schools, but actually doing that, like it is okay. And modeling. I was really good at, especially when all the digital learning came out and I was trying all these different digital tools and, you know, just showing them and I was bumbling through things as well. So I know we're all sort of thinking about that, you know, in addition to covering standards, how are we really, you know, helping kids be these citizens that the world is needing. So, all right, so feel free to pass that report along or use it in school meetings and professional learning, however. So I want to move on a little bit because I definitely want to make sure I have time to get us to our activity. So what does this mean for educators? And let's take a look at a few together. Again, these are probably all things we all are very aware of. We must begin thinking of how to design learning experiences that support student empowerment. This begins in classrooms where students collaborate with their peers and teachers, classrooms that esteem student voice, classrooms where students co-create relevant learning experiences alongside their teachers. And I came across this, again, it's from the Center of Inspired Teaching. Drop the chat in there in case you haven't had any, okay, here we go. Sorry, I always have to get to the right window. This came from this organization. that's doing a lot around student engagement. And, you know, it's stating what we know. Students are more engaged when presented with authentic learning activities, focusing on real world complex problems and their solutions. You know, I don't know how many of you have dabbled out there in project-based learning and have gotten into some of that. You know, it's hard work. It's hard work because, you know, we have to get through standards and cover all of those. Yet when you get into project-based learning, you are getting into presenting students with these complex real world problems, and they do light up and they do see the connection between school. You know, so that can be just as simple as posing, you know, a real world problem to them and you know, starting to help them connect school and the real world. And then finally, you know, what better way to ensure these types of experiences than to collaboratively design them with our students? And I want to stop there because this is one of those other areas, you know, I read a lot, I see all the Edutopia articles and things like that. We talk a lot about co-creating learning experiences, and it sounds wonderful. And I'm curious out there, what are some examples that you have of where you feel like, yeah, I am co-creating this with students rather than coming in with it all planned out and them just receiving? It's harder to do than say. It sounds simple, but I would love to hear if you have any activities you've done or the way you're starting to bring student voice into creating their learning experiences. I know there's some good ideas out there.
I don't know if it's a good idea, but I teach science. And every unit we have to incorporate that based on the content, the kids have to come up with their own investigation. So they have to think about what we've been talking about, how we've applied it to real world, and then what is something that they've noticed that they could design an experiment and then follow through to research that topic.
Do you notice a different shift, you know, when you move into that part of it where they're asked to come up with some of this themselves?
A little bit. Like they're definitely more, they like investigations. They tend to be more open and willing when I provide the investigation, like if it's a guided or a scripted investigation. And it's interesting because they're very, I guess they're open to it, but they don't know how to narrow themselves down. Like they've got all these ideas and they waste I hate to say waste, but they spend almost an entire period arguing over what the question that they're going to explore is even going to be. So, I mean, I guess it does inspire curiosity and it kind of gets them almost more motivated maybe, but I guess I got to figure out a way to kind of, what are good questions? What is feasible? What is doable?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thanks for sharing, Kelly. You brought, I'm jotting things down. You know, you just said it. You know, we are products of pretty traditional education, and our students don't quite. We talk about collaborating and teamwork and project-based learning, but they're lacking actually the skills to communicate, collectively solve problems. And so you're right, we're starting to do these kinds of activities and realize, oh, that didn't work because they need the time to transition as well. And some of the activities I'm going to share in a little bit we'll hit at that, Kelly, because I think it's important that we don't skip over that our students aren't quite ready for all this agency and co-collaborating. And you say, like, what do you want to learn? And they say, I remember in my class, I was like, write about, you know, it was creative writing, write about anything you want. And they just sat there at that time with a pen and we're like, I don't know what to write, Miss Weber. And I was like, oh, wow, I thought I was doing you a favor by giving you agency and choice. And they just were frozen. So some of the activities we'll talk about in a little bit, we'll get into that. But it's just scratching the surface, Kelly. It's just, you know, you probably have to dedicate, you know, we have to chisel out that time to explicitly teach these things. And like you said, come up with the right questions that scaffold them closer and closer. And that's the job we're in right now for sure. Anything else people wanted to share about some successful co-creating learning in your classrooms?
Hi, I'm Dawn.
John?
Hey, it's not so much in a classroom, but I'm really fortunate. Our school is a K-12 school, and this is a little bit more about that mindset you're talking about. But what we've done is with our kind of growth mindset that we do every day, we've paired our older students with a younger class, kind of like, you see when you drive around like sister cities where people are paired up together. So we might have a high school class and a 4th or 5th grade class paired together, and they meet about once a month. And really our 6th grade through 12th grade kind of take ownership of what parts of the 7 mindsets, or what part of those growth ideas do they want to share with the younger students, and how do they want to, what they've learned as they've gotten older, what are those kind of key components and that they're learning, what do they want to put on the younger ones, and how do they want them to formulate their ideas and help them. So our older kids get that kind of ownership of guiding the younger students. So that's just something we do, but it's a little bit more growth mindset than that academic piece. But they love it, and they love sharing, and they feel that they take ownership of those younger students, and when they see them outside or when they see them in different areas, they really feel like they're a family and they're a community.
Yeah. Geez, that's, I remember back to book buddies, but you're touching on something. And, Dr. Lindeman, you said this too, like when the internet goes down, we actually have to be with each other, that both, Dawn, that is, that goes a long ways. And I've seen what you're saying too, around the older kids taking ownership. And for some of these kids, that's a powerful moment. Home lives are hard right now. And then to be able to be in a space where they can, support and guide younger kids is really important. So yeah, definitely don't underestimate the power of those cross grade interactions. They take some coordination, but they go a long ways. All right. All right. There's just good stuff in the chat too. Thanks for writing some things in there. Oh, and I see this. Oh, did y'all catch the attendance form, Nathan? Thank you. It's in the chat. Okay. All right. So just a couple, we've already been doing some good reflection here and sharing, but before we get into this independent activity, these are some questions that kind of help me when I'm thinking about, this work around student agency and mindset. Knowing your students, studying your students and really understanding what lights each one of them up. I think that's always at the heart of teaching. Those of us that go into it know, like, I want to know my students, what gets them going. What are the roles of student and teacher now? That is shifting. I think kids are, especially coming out of COVID, it's just a different dynamic now. And how can we empower student agency authentically? We were just talking a little bit about that. So feel free you can screenshot that too. That's a great conversation if you're going to do any PD and in school professional learning. Those are great questions to start with your team. Okay, so we're gonna pivot here. I'm doing good on time even, to the actual activity. But I want to call something out, because something we do at Link is we really try to model some of the instructional strategies and practices that we talk about, in a traditional workshop like we're in right now. So I want to point out that during this activity portion of the session, I'm going to actually be modeling a way to increase student agency using a choice board, which is often baked into the playlist model and the blended learning models. And this is going to allow you, my students, to select what you want to work on. But I have made sure that each choice that I've built in there is going to lead to the learning objective or the desired outcome. So, just wanted to call that out, that, this is a tool that you can use in adult professional learning, if you're providing that in your school, but you can also share this with teachers to create, they can even use this as a template. And so, okay, I'm going to do an experiment on you all too. I have been playing with Google's template preview. And I'm always curious because I'm not sure if you all use Google or if you're logged into, so if you're not logged into Google, does this work? Does that work for you? Does it come up and say like with a blue box that says template preview? Yeah, I see some thumbs up. Kelly, are you logged into Google?
I am logged into Google.
Ah,
so-
okay. I'm always curious for the people that, oh, you got at Clark County? Okay. All right. Okay. Well, if it's not working did it work for everybody? I can't see. I'm looking in the chat. All right. So it looks like it did. All right. So click on the use a template and it'll create a new template for you. I have another version if it didn't work for anyone. Okay, so like I said, this is me modeling student agency and a way to create different learning opportunities for students. I know you've probably seen different choice boards and playlists before. So this is a template you can, copy and revamp as needed. I'm not going to actually show the video, but an option video is to embed a video at the start of a choice board of you going over the directions, especially if you aren't going to be able to do this whole group like we're doing right now, and you're just assigning this to students independently. The next slide that you'll see is, again, just another written directions. It's just another way to ensure that the learners will have what they need to be successful while working independently. One of the things we found in, the remote learning time was that, you really can, create these playlist type things and the students can pretty much function if you give the clear directions. And those videos really, really helped. So teachers became very proficient at Screencastify and QuickTime and making videos. So they're very helpful. So I included both. The next slide that you'll see is one of these. It actually came from that Center for Inspired Learning questions. And what I did was just thinking about that quote that we shared earlier, and that definition of agency. What is the end goal that you want to see with your students after facilitating the chosen learning experience that we're gonna engage in? So when you're thinking about student agency and mindset, you don't have to do this right now, but basically this is the independent learning is, just take a minute, ground yourself in what do I want for my students when I think about their agency and mindset. So that's just a short reflection question in the activity. And then you're going to get into the actual activity that you can explore and plan. And this is where the agency piece comes in for you and for students. If you're doing something like this, is you're going to get to pick a topic. So of those 3 topics there, understand student perception of learning and what inspires them to learn, build awareness of next generation learning with students by brainstorming modern learning and the roles of the student and teacher, or empower student agency through shared class and learning visioning. So those are the 3 areas that you get to choose from that I curated that I knew would align with the outcome of today's session. So it's just like, it's a fun way to plan lessons for students because you're building in what different ways that, they learn and options for them, and they feel empowered then to choose. And then I'll just quickly show you the following slide. So this is what you'll have is each color has 2 slides. And so if you chose the pink one, it's going to have some suggested activities, and then embedded in there is actually a video that talks you through one of the activities about building student perception about learning in this topic area. So it's there for you to sort of explore at your own pace. And then the second slide is where you make your plan. And so if you want to choose, the blue, green, or pink, just for now, because we don't have a lot of time, or you can actually peruse all of them and know that you're going to walk away today with potentially 3 activities that you can adapt and use with your students. And if you were using this in a professional learning, if you were leading professional learning, you could then have, teachers complete the plan and then come back together like in a PLC and share plans before people try it out in their classrooms. So that's what's on the deck that I put in the link. And I want to give you about 10, 15 minutes to explore the three, here we go, the three choices, or if you want to just delve into one and really actually walk away today with a plan, or at least the start of a plan, we can do that. Any questions? Okay, here's my next digital learning. Okay, so I put a timer. Can you all see the timer? A little 10-minute timer on the slide. All right, here we go. I'm going to start it. Okay. Is it counting down? And you can see it. Okay. All right. So feel free if you want to, go off camera, or if you want to hit mute if you're watching videos, most of you are, and explore that resource. Okay, if you're busy working, you got about 1 more minute. Thank you. Okay, let me try that again. Come on and join us back if you haven't already. All right, so what I was saying was, I want to have a quick wrap up discussion. And I also selfishly like to get any quick feedback. I know you're going to probably fill out a form, or I think Nathan will have, I could be wrong, but any thoughts or ideas, or, along with the questions that are on the board, just with that template, if it worked for you as far as a learner, curious what you think. Quiet. Maybe everybody's still working. I guess no news is good news. It worked. Definitely, I hope, you can see, if you haven't started exploring with some digital choice boards, and playlists that have, hyperlinks to resources and activities. I know, a lot of us have started using those, but really expanding that and seeing how, really curating those, will just inherently provide greater agency. And then you can get into, thoughtful covering standards and things like that. But to start with, too, I think it was Kelly's point and a couple other people around, like, what are students ready for? I would say, do a fun low stakes choice board, where they just get the feel for what it feels like to be an independent learner and have some choice, and not sitting back and waiting for the teacher to give them everything. And if you do it with activities that, aren't crucial and critical to that moment, or kind of fun and light, it sets them up for when you do create a choice board that is, has the standards, and really is important that the kids master what is on there. So, oh, good. I see some messages in there. Yeah, it feeds at our creativity too as teachers. Really, I know that's at the heart of most of the work that we do. It comes from a really creative place in us. So having the ability to build and curate these with that creative, because I know sometimes, like, teacher agency is still an area that we need to develop in our schools, as well as student agency. There it is again, that, when you use choice boards, the hesitancy, am I doing this in the right order? And all of those things come up for students. That is great. That there's digital and paper pencil. Absolutely. I'm glad that you caught that, and that, that we still a balance of technology is always really important, I think, in schools. So building in offline and online activities for sure are great in these playlists or choice boards. And then I just like to end with, sort of a call to action. And we say a lot of times in our sessions, when are you going to put this on the court? And so much of what we're going through as educators now is about just taking the risk and trying something that is out of our comfort zones, getting student feedback. It can be a mess. It can be a total mess. And that's okay too, for the students to see that, we're trying. I mean, for those of us that aren't digital natives, that didn't like the kids these days that grew up with it, it's like, I am forever trying to figure out digital platforms and programs, and they love to really help. They really do. So putting them in the position and knowing that things are going to get messy, but it's in the name of progress. So please, please, please go out there in your classroom and try, and your schools, and try these things in the time and the space that you have. I know it's not a lot. And hopefully it fills you up too, and inspires you on this journey that we're all on as educators. So unless anybody has any questions or comments, I will drop, like I said, I work for Link, and we are providing, just keep an ear out. You'll see, and there'll be communication coming out from the State Department of Ed around the professional learning platform. A lot of the template I shared with you comes from a lot of the modules that we have in our platform. So just keep an ear out. I just wanted to drop, like I said, we're partnering. It's linklearning.com, and just keep an ear out. I know you all have so much coming at you at the beginning of the year. So just, hear and think Link. And I really appreciate you all being here on a Saturday. And I know you would love 5 minutes back to take a break before the next session.
Okay, so before that, I just want to say
Okay, thanks, Nathan.
thank you so much, Kim. This was absolutely ultra amazing, seriously. All of these ready-made supports for teachers is just so important. Anything to get things off of teachers' plates is just absolutely spectacular. And I just want to say thank you so much for spending your morning with us. For everyone else that's here, the next session in this room starts at 11:30, so in 10 minutes, and it is Working Smarter, Not Harder, How Competency-Based Learning Can Support Learning Acceleration and Sustainability for Teachers. So before you go, first, make sure that you did fill out the attendance form that I put in about halfway through, but also don't forget to complete the session survey, which is going to ask you a few questions about this session. Here it is. I'm going to go and put that in chat right now.
Hey, Nathan, can I plug another session too?
Of course.
Or does everybody stay in this room? I don't know what the format is.
No, they can go wherever they want.
I figured agency, right? A dear friend of mine and a colleague, Charity Dodd, is doing a session on, oh boy, you ready? Integrating AI into a blended learning classroom. So she does such a great job of just scratching the surface of what we can do and how we can start to navigate this AI world. And so her name is Charity Dodd, and it'll be a good one.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kim.
Thanks.